There are several data challenges that face the modern enterprise. The current tool set tends to be very partial, very siloed across your entire data landscape. You also have a limited understanding of really your data risk as it aligns to different controls, as well as your data exposure and what has been exposed. How do you tell where that maps to the rest of your enterprise? Effectively understanding your data is key. Understanding where that highly sensitive data, where that crown jewel data is very key to understanding how you can protect that data moving forward. Plus, regulations are constantly changing and emerging. Keeping up with those changes, aligning it to your enterprise across your data landscape to be able to protect that. This is where BigID comes in through our platform, our deep data discovery platform, that allows you to understand this data in depth. We do this by leveraging the 4 C's, by cataloging the data, understanding the data across your enterprise, cataloging the metadata associated to that, by classifying that data, understanding that those sensitive elements that are out there, helping you find that through patterns, through machine learning algorithms. We cluster that data together, give you a better understanding of the groupings of that data, give you the ability to tag that data so that it can be controlled. And finally, we help you correlate that data. A lot of the data regulations, a lot of protection, you need to be able to individualize that data across your enterprise. By leveraging our correlation, you can do this across both structured and unstructured data. Now that we have that deep data discovery, we need to take some action associated with that. Through our applications in perspective applications, understanding your data, through privacy applications, being able to protect privacy, and through protection applications, you're able to start to take action on that data. We also integrate to a lot of different partners out there to help expand and to give you that enterprise viewpoint to go across those silos to be able to govern and protect your data. The 3 applications that I'm going to focus on today are our data risk application, where we help you understand your risks to be able to track that risk over time and configure risk. Data breach investigation. This is where you may find a scenario where you find some data on the dark web or through some other mechanisms, and you want to compare it to your data to see maybe where did this come from, and what's the breadth and the scope of that data breach. And finally, our remediation application. So what do we do with that data now that we know all of the data? Are there remediation steps? When we apply policies, are we able to leverage those policies? And then once a policy violation happens, how do we go through those remediation steps? Whether it's encryption, whether it's deletion, whether it's obfuscation, how do you handle that from a remediation perspective? So I'm going to switch over to the application now so that you can get an idea of what this deep data discovery looks like in action. As soon as you log into the system, you're able to see a dashboard that gives you a quick picture of all the data that's out there. So you can see here we have 27 different data sources. And of those 27 data sources, 15 of them contain sensitive data that needs to be protected. We have 80 different attributes that need to be protected. So these are things like credit card numbers, US Social Security numbers, national healthcare numbers, names, email addresses, phone numbers. The sensitive data needs to be protected. We also give you a quick viewpoint of where your data is located, both from a physical location, but also from a residency perspective, since each jurisdiction might have different regulations about the privacy and the protection of that data. What we do through that data discovery is we build this inventory of all the data that is out there. So you can see that the residency, again, all those different attributes that we've discovered through correlation and through classification, the applications, the data sources, where this data is located, as well as dive a little bit deeper into these data sources. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time diving into the deep data discovery. We have other workshops that go into depth, but I do want to give you kind of an understanding of how we're building this inventory so that you get a basis of how these applications start to take action associated with that. And we do that through the 4Cs platforms. So we'll start with the catalog. The catalog is really the widest. It is a catalog, like it describes, of all of your data that's out there, whether it's structured data, whether it's unstructured data, whether it's semi-structured data, or even cloud applications. We go through, we collect all of this metadata associated to this. In this case, it's a structured database table. It's a Postgres database. We'll pull all those sensitive attributes out here. So you've got email and you've got country. We'll pull all the columns that are out there so you can see country, country code, email. We even give you a quick ability to do a quick preview of that data as well. We do this unstructured as well. So you'll see here that metadata associated with that, this text file here, all the attributes, that sensitive data that we discover through this process. The preview, if we want to look at the quick preview of that data, as well as if there's any duplications out here. I wanted to highlight a couple of these tags up top here. So open access is one that we may want to deal with from a remediation app that we'll dive into in details later, as well as it contains PI or maybe even has duplicates. We can handle that with a remediation app as well. So now we've got a breadth of kind of where our data is. Now we need to add some additional intelligence to this. And this is where the classification starts to go together. And we do this in 3 methodologies: pattern matching. So the US Social Security number is 3 digits, -2 digits, -4 digits. Credit card numbers are 16 digits. We also leverage things like machine learning to help find that sensitive data that needs to be protected, like your name, like country, things that don't necessarily match a pattern, but are very private. They're very sensitive type of data. And we also do that from an entire document level. Think of mergers and acquisitions documents, financial statements, patent documents, where the entire document itself is highly sensitive. It has highly sensitive elements as well, but now you think about it in the context of that entire document needs to be protected. Cluster analysis is where we group together all this information based on keywords. It's an unsupervised machine learning algorithm that goes through and groups together this information. If I click on this employee information bubble, you'll see some of the top keywords that are being used, some of the top attributes that are being used in this grouping, where this data is located. In this case, you have almost 2,500 files from these 2 different data sources, any duplications that are there. But where the value becomes is in these tags. And when you're thinking about it from a protection perspective, we're able to add these tags to the metadata associated with those files so they can be protected. Things like confidential, highly sensitive, even things like public that can be shared. You're able to add these additional tags to it. Correlation, again, is where we start to individualize that data and link that data across your enterprise. So you'll see some attributes over here, and I'm just going to select email and then minimize the window to give us a little bit more room. And then I'm going to select 2 of the applications that are out here. I'll select this medical application as well as this linkage application and pull in the financial table. So you'll see that we have email address in both applications here, but you'll also notice these orange flags. And these orange flags are we are identifying that sensitive, that confidential data that's beyond just those pattern matching. So things that would link back to an individual. Think about an IP address. An IP address by itself doesn't mean much, but linked back to an individual, now it becomes personal and private type of data that needs to be secured. Then we can link across the rest of the tables associated with this application and link both of these applications across the enterprise. So now I've got a clearer view of what data needs to be protected across my entire enterprise, not just a few classifications, but now that I've correlated it, I've got a better viewpoint of that data. And that builds this inventory that we talked about earlier of all that deep data intelligence. From that data intelligence, now we need to do something. We need to take action on this. It's great to know something, but now we need to take some action associated with that. So that's where we have these applications. And these applications are really those 3 pillars, or really the 4 pillars that we talked about earlier: privacy application, protection applications, and perspective applications. I'm going to start with a risk configuration application. This is where you can define your risk attributes, a KPI that you can track over time, set targets, a better understanding of what your risk profile, or at least your data risk profile, looks like. You can do it from a residency perspective, those different attributes. You can see here birthday, country, customer ID. You can adjust the risk associated with those data sources, an understanding of what those data source looks like, and even applications if you want to go to that level. This can be adjusted over time. As you bring on more applications, you get another understanding of what that risk matrix looks like, to be able to really truly understand all of your data throughout this entire enterprise. So you can see here, we've got a score of 66 is what our expected score is, what our target score is. And you'll see over here what our current risk score is 66, so they match. So we're meeting our KPIs in this case. Now you can adjust that over time and make it stronger, so you get a better risk profile and better understanding of what that risk looks like. The next app that I wanted to spend a moment on is this data breach application. So this is a scenario where you find some data, maybe it's on the dark web or something got emailed out that shouldn't have. And you need to understand the breadth and the scope of that, and really the impact of that data to add to your forensics process or your breach investigation. So you would create a new breach, you would upload that file, and we've uploaded one already. And we'll go through some comparative analysis and look to where that data might match. You can see here it matches very closely, a 92% similarity to a network file share. SharePoint, it isn't all that similar, so it may not truly affect that type of scenario. But based on this network share, now I can go to the top and kind of understand really what that breach data looks like from a scope perspective. So you can see residency, are there reporting requirements from these different residencies that we need to comply with. We can understand all the attributes that were discovered. So what's the impact of this? Is it just some customer IDs that don't map back to anything? Or is it customer IDs plus email addresses, plus names, plus social security numbers, plus credit card numbers? And now that breadth and that scope and that understanding grows. So this allows you to quickly understand how the data landscape looks based on that breach investigation, to give your incident response team the ability to understand the data, but also where might that data have come from quicker, so that they can respond to that breach investigation that needs to happen. The last application that I wanted to spend a moment on is our remediation application. So I'll bring up our data remediation application here. And what the data remediation application is it allows you to workflow these policies to be able to rectify policy violations. So before I dive too deep into this remediation, I'm going to take a step out and talk about our policies.